Lisa Frankenstein was super weird, but I loved it anyway, and I think you might too. Like, sometimes something's so weird that it's hard to describe how weird it is. Do you know what I mean? And real quickly, I just want to say I'm keeping spoilers very light here. I don't want to ruin the movie for you if you haven't seen it yet. But here's the basic premise of the movie. In 1989, an unpopular high school girl named Lisa accidentally reanimates a handsome Victorian corpse during a lightning storm and starts to rebuild him into the man of her dreams by using the broken tanning bed in her garage. That is at least Regal's description of what this movie is about, but there is a lot more going on. And if you were thinking, that doesn't sound anything like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein story, you would be 100% correct. This movie has almost nothing in common with that original story outside of galvanism reanimating multiple body parts into like one specimen. However, this movie's not going for that Mary Shelley Frankenstein retelling. This movie is going for being wacky as balls. I'm not going to say this is like the weirdest movie I've ever watched. Like, if you saw Beau is Afraid, it's not even close to that. However, this movie has a lot of weird stuff kind of happen. It's not like one thing. There's just a whole bunch of things that add to this sort of weird atmosphere. There's like a lot of slapstick jokes that has a lot like body humor and gore humor and weirdly sexual humor. Like, I don't want to get too into it. They don't show anything like explicitly or anything, but they just make sex body joke. Like, you have to watch the movie to understand. It's like things just also like kind of happen in this movie. Lisa doesn't intentionally reanimate a dead body. It just kind of happens, and then he just shows up, and then they're just kind of like bros, and then he gets like super protective of her, like when her stepmom is being mean. He's like, oh, I'm gonna drop a worm in her food. Ha ha ha. And at the beginning of this movie, it makes you feel like it's gonna be like Encino Man, just sort of like out of touch from his time type of person where they're like, oh, we gotta hide him. We don't want anyone to see that I have this Frankenstein in my closet. That would be bad. I was having a lot of fun with that premise. There's a lot of slapstick humor, a lot of great chemistry between this dead corpse and Lisa. But then I was starting to get worried. I was like, is this gonna be the whole movie? Like, oh, we almost got caught. No, I would say around like not the halfway point, but like a little bit before the halfway point, there is a distinct shift where something happens, and then the entire trajectory of the movie switches. And then instead of being this sort of Encino Man, blast from the past, that's two Brendan Fraser movies, that's kind of funny, but instead of being like that type of movie, it becomes more like Joker, weirdly enough, but like more funny and lighthearted, which is funny because the other movie's called Joker, and I'm just saying this Frankenstein movie's more funny. But then the movie becomes weird because of how fast it shifted direction, and your characters start to shift. Like with the Joker, you see her starting off as more kind of shy and weird, but then starting to gain this quirky confidence, and while that's satisfying, she's also kind of a bad person. So we like to see our characters develop and grow and be more confident in themselves, but when they're confident in themselves for the wrong reasons, that's when things start getting out of hand. And I think Kathryn Newton, who you might have seen as Ant-Man's annoying daughter in Ant-Man 3, or hopefully maybe Freaky, where I think she did a great take on like a psychotic female killer, she brought the character of Lisa to life. I watched this movie with my cousin Kyle from the Film Fights podcast, link up here and in the description, and he said at some point in the movie that Kathryn Newton gave off some serious Winona Ryder vibes, and at that point, I couldn't unsee it. She really brought that dark goth vibe to this role, and I think that worked really perfectly. Cole Sprouse plays the Creature, as he is dubbed, and while I think Kathryn Newton was great as Lisa, I think he is by far the standout of this movie. As I previously mentioned, he's a corpse from the Victorian era, and with that comes a lot of traditions and customs from that era that they kind of bring into his character at times, like the type of music he listens to and how he would sort of ask someone out. And they do a lot of really funny things with how he's this dead, disgusting corpse, and there's so much gross out humor that kind of comes with that. But it all actually, for the most part, worked for me. He's also very endearing because he's always trying to help Lisa out. He always has her best interest in mind, and there's a lot of funny moments that that come from that, like him handing her a dress and being like, yeah, you should wear this because you'll look better at school. And you're like, wow, he's just kind of a bro. But as the movie develops and their friendship develops, you can see that he starts catching a couple of feels for her. And that's when things get a little bit weird. Lisa sort of progresses and becomes more confident. She's also helping to repair the creature's body because he's missing a couple of body parts, we'll say. As he starts to look more normal and more human as the movie progresses, as their sort of friendship and love progresses, and they're not doing great things. They're not good people, but because we're seeing our love interests progress at the same time, it's narratively satisfying for me. And it's kind of weird that it's narratively satisfying for me. This movie made me root so hard for this dead, rotting corpse to get with some girl. And I was so invested in this bro's struggle. I'm like, come on, man, you gotta give her some flowers or something. You gotta step up your game because I want you to succeed. I want you to get Lisa to see your worth. You have to prove that not all nice Frankensteins finish last, buddy. I would say it's actually kind of a throwback to 80s horror comedy. Think like Teen Wolf or Fright Night. It just elicits that fun 80s vibe. This movie does everything to put you in the atmosphere of what the 80s would be like. Well, at least the 80s as I understand it. I was not alive in the 80s, whether it's the hair, the costumes, the houses, the school, the music. Like, if you don't like the song Can't Fight This Feeling anymore, I would highly recommend you skip it because I swear they play that song at least 3 times in the movie. This movie is just a hodgepodge of all these 80s horror comedies that you might have seen. The Joker, this crazy love story that creates this vibe that is wholly unique and is so weirdly charming. And like, sure, I probably have some issues with this movie. I think the movie takes a little too long to really get started. And then there's some like unresolved plot threads where I was like thinking they were gonna circle back to this and it was gonna be some reveal, but I'm like, oh no, that's just how it went down. But like, I don't care, man. I just had a really fun time at this movie. I just really enjoyed myself. It was weird, out there, ballsy, quirky, fun, and that's really all that I was hoping from this movie, and it just delivered. I'm sick of pretending that I don't like movies that are weird because people are like, you just like that because you're weird and you're artsy, and I have to pretend that, no, this is the deep analysis that is why it's so awesome. I don't know every decision. I don't know why there's this random black and white Frankenstein flashback that references and homages the old movies. I don't know why that happens in here, but I liked it because it was weird. And this movie's weird. And I like that it's weird. You know what I mean? I just think that if that sounds interesting to you, if you're like, yeah, that sounds like my jam, like it was my jam, it's gonna be your jam. I can almost guarantee it. But I want to hear your thoughts on this movie. Did you see it? Did you like it? And what's your favorite 80s horror comedy? I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. And what's that? You haven't subscribed to Budster Brown, the #1 movie reviewing channel on YouTube? You better smash that subscribe button or I'm gonna have one of my Frankenstein monsters show up to your house and smash something else. In all seriousness, I would like to do this as a job one day, so if I can start getting more views and more subscribers, I can really fully invest in this stuff. And with that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you later.